Hello, welcome to our strategy guide on Ark Nova. I'm joined today with JDan. Before we started this recording, you just told me that it's a bad picture of you because this is Arena Season 13 champion, and you're telling me that you're also Season 14, so I was told very strictly that I had to correct this before we start. It's very important.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I want my fake internet points.
Yeah. If you've never played Ark Nova before, I actually recommend that you watch Orski's strategy guide to Ark Nova. He does a very good job laying out the basics, and he's very likable.
I had a coaching session with him.
I remember now. You actually helped him with this video, right?
Yeah, exactly. I had no idea he was making a guide, and he also credited me. Very nice of him.
Let's talk about the animal cards. You want to play small animals in the early game, but it really depends. Sometimes playing large animals in the early game is fine, like if it's large efficient animals. But as a general rule, you get more tickets for your buck on small animals.
Actually, my next video is about the animals. When it comes to tickets, you get the same amount of tickets per animal.
Yeah, so if it's not because of the tickets, why is it that you would like to play small animals to begin with? It's just easier to get down, less requirements?
It's easier to build at a lower strength. The bigger animals usually have at least one requirement, and also if you're doing smaller animals, they give more tags for the base conservation products. If you throw down a large one, it's just gonna give you normally one tag for base conservation. Maybe if you do too small, you get two tags.
Yep. I would also say that Ark Nova is well balanced and you can make all animals work pretty much. However, there are a few imbalances that you should exploit. Actually, to help us with this, Strategy Advisor made this video. He kind of broke down all the animals and how everything is balanced in the game. What we know is that a ticket is like 3 money, but also a reputation is also worth 3 tickets. What do you think about this, JD?
I think a rep is almost always, unless you're not upgrading cards, more worth than a ticket. But I wouldn't go as far as 6, like maybe 4.5. I do, however, think card snapping, X token, and card draw is very overpriced. It's funny because I do think an X token is worth about 3 money, like maybe a bit higher. X token also goes up in value the longer the game goes on, but if for some reason it's not good to get X tokens from doing animals. I can't really explain it. Like maybe 2.5 on the X token, maybe 2 on the card draw, and the snapping is probably 3 or 2.9 or something.
It's actually funny because in the expansion, an X token is literally worth 5 because there's a card where you can trade an X token into 5 gold and you can trade 5 gold into an X token. But
yeah, but I think I haven't played too much of the expansion, but I think you're always gonna trade X tokens for 5 money, taking benefit of that effect, or vice versa.
But the point of this is pretty much you can take one of these animals and you can look at how many tickets it has and you can look at the cost, and also the size of the enclosure is also included into this cost. We also have some more stuff here to dive into. The thing that jumps to my eyes the most is a bear tag. If you can actually solve a bear tag, it's like -8, so it means that immediately you get 8 value as soon as you have a bear tag and you play like a giant panda or something.
The animal type that differs the most from top players and lower rated players. Mostly top players play a lot of more bears and birds.
Yeah.
And they also play less monkeys. Also, like the -5 on upgraded animals is kind of huge.
Yeah.
So I think animals is a card you always have to upgrade.
I think Sam made this point that the rock and water icons, it makes it cheaper, but it should kind of be the other way around because it's actually an advantage to have these tags in your zoo. And it's not really hard to fulfill it to get next to rock or water. That's Sam's opinion. What do you think about it?
I would probably not agree with that opinion because you do have to play around it. And if you look at the maps, that's a huge balance issue, right? I used to think Observation Tower was the worst map in the game.
Yeah.
I don't think it's so anymore, but it's still at the bottom of the list, and that's just because the rock and the water is split in half.
It's very awkward, for sure.
Yeah, so like it is a hassle, even if it might not feel like it, but you do have to plan around it.
Yep. Finally, we see that an extra worker is 14, an extra turn is 11, an X token is 6, clever is 1.
Yeah, they're kind of weird, right? Because I'm not sure you have a picture of it, but the new first Sealand Seal, what it's called?
Yeah, the one that gives a worker, right? Full-throated?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of top players agree that it's like one of the best animals in the game, which is kind of weird because 14 is a lot of money for an animal, and I don't think the other fully throated ones are that good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to grasp why it is like that. So 14 money is a lot. Like Eurasian Brown is still good, but you have the problem with the bear requirement.
The way I see it, the 2 bears are more like late game cards, whereas the fur sea lion is more like an early game card. You want to get that down as soon as possible because of the worker. maybe mid game.
Yeah, for
you know?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But I do think brown bear can be an early game card as well.
Yeah.
Because the workers are more relevant early usually.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to evaluate like the 14 cost because it sounds a lot, like a lot. Determination is way too cheap.
Yep.
Yeah, just keep whenever you see a determination animal, just keep it.
Yep.
X2 doesn't feel that expensive with 6 money, but
I mean, it has a lot of variants. I would argue that X2 like association or X2 sponsors would be better than X2 build, for example.
yeah, it does have a lot of variants, and it's also, since you have to take an animal's action to take it, it's very hard to get it when you want to have it.
Yeah.
Because like one important thing of Ark is flexibility, and since it's not that good of an animal ability because it's not very flexible, I'd argue.
Yeah, sometimes
And
it
also
wins you the game, and sometimes it's like, whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just 6 money down the drain. But it can be good, but it's not that flexible, which makes it a lot worse. And then clever, it's also very, what do you say?
Undervalued?
Yeah, it's undervalued for sure, but it's sometimes it does you nothing, and sometimes it's like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
So I think 1 money is fair for it, like maybe 1.5 or 2. But since it sometimes doesn't do anything.
It also depends when in the game we are. I would argue that both determination and clever is better in the late game. Like it's even more impactful at that point.
I'd say clever is more of a mid game thing, and determination is a late game thing.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah.
Same with X2. I think it's more of a mid game ability than a final round ability. You could get like an X2 on a Soch. It might be a bit awkward setting up.
Yeah, that surprises me a bit actually. I thought X2 association late game would be the best way to use it, but...
Yeah, but it's also only the brown bear that gives you X2 Soch, I believe.
Yeah, unless you get it from like one of the bonuses on the track. Yeah.
Or like commercial harbor.
Yeah, I recommend you check out No Wonders, Sam, and the strategy advisors. They did the heavy lifting on this stuff. We are just talking on top of the work they already made here. Which animals are good in the opening hand? Personally, I wrote down some keywords that I would look for in the opening hand, and I'm very curious to hear what your opinion on this is. So I would look for posturing, sunbathing, jumping, full-throated, and well, it's pretty much only first heel like we talked about, because the other bears can be used in the early game, but I think it's very expensive and hard to do generally. First heel is the easiest one to play. And then almost everything that gives you reputation, I think is also very good. Anything that helps with the base projects. And what else? What do you look for otherwise? Maybe rock and water icons, maybe some requirements you can fulfill, because as Sam talked about, if you have some requirements on the card that you can fulfill, you immediately get a discount just because how the stuff is balanced. Maybe you look for card draw, maybe you look for clever. What do you look for in your opening hand?
Usually the most important thing is to match a base conservation project or something to release to make your own conservation project. I do think Mon is very overrated by a lot of players in Ark. Yeah, jumping is great, especially if you're first player in a two-player game.
It helps you to control the break, and sometimes you can break by playing an animal, which is super good because you get a free X token. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
sure.
But yes, Sunbathing is very good. Break 0 as well. Posturing is okay. Wouldn't really like go out of my way to play a posturing animal.
Alright, this immediately ties into the fact that you don't value money as much as I do. I'm only 1800, so I'm still amongst the people in Ark Nova who really values getting money, so...
Yeah, what's your all-time elo?
Is that the one that's not in Arena?
Yeah, exactly.
It was 600, and now after I tried playing around with not upgrading build and tried to be like you, now I'm 500, so I'm just barely in the elite bracket now.
But, yeah, but around 500 is not bad.
Yeah, I don't know what to do when people give me a compliment. Maybe we should... Maybe
I mean, it wasn't a compliment, it was more like a fact, you know?
Yeah.
I thought, I know Orski, for example, is like 200, you know? So.
Yeah, makes sense. Right.
Yeah, but you're free to take it as a compliment if you want to.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, so personally, I'm really fond of posturing. I think it's just great that you can get these birds down in the early game. You just get kiosks and pavilion for free. And also, I feel like this frees me up to not upgrade build in some cases, because I already have like a pavilion or something, or a kiosk because of this posturing. But I don't know if that's the right way to think about it, but I definitely like all of these birds in the early game. But I'm surprised you don't, so let's hear it.
They're great, but like if... Let's say Flamingo, for example, if I have no use for the water tag and neither Europe or bird is part of the base project, I have a hard time seeing me keeping it out of the blue unless I have no other playable animal. It's just like nothing amazing, you know?
I don't know. If I see a Scarlet Macaque in my opening hand, I don't care about any of the rest of the cards. I'm keeping this 100%. But I'm a big sucker for posturing. I think it's very fun. I think it's very efficient just to get some good early game income. So
yeah, Scarlet Macaque is great. I think it's viable to go American play it, but it's more of a second choice. If I have something better to do, I'd rather do that. Also very funny, because I denied snapped a lot of bird breeding programs, because
people
you can
just
really tell when people have a Scarlet Macaque in their hand for some reason.
Yeah, if they take America, if they make a size 1, you just you
Yeah,
have an
but
idea.
it's not like they don't even have to get America. You can just tell for some reason.
Makes sense.
As soon as they do a size 1, like, oh, I need to snap this now, or they're gonna snap the next move.
Yeah.
But I think it's also kind of telling, because a lot of the better size 1s needs rock or water, and the Macaque doesn't. A little giveaway.
That's true, actually. I didn't think about that. Let's talk about reputation. It's also very undervalued, and you want to get cards that gives you reputation, at the very least in the early game, because you want to reach that first upgrade, that first worker, if possible.
I wouldn't call it undervalued. I think it's actually overvalued, because a lot of people realize that. I'm not like, if you ask a player like Dwarven Time, for example, which is probably the second best player in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He'd say it's very, very overrated reputation.
But it's certainly better than a ticket, right? Like, according to how the game is balanced, right?
So, for sure.
But you think it's still overrated in the sense that it's not like how I see it, that it's worth 5 or something.
Yeah, I feel a lot of opponents do overvalue reputation a lot.
Oh, cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, and if you would talk with Warren, for example, he'd say like reputation is useless.
I thought it was super important to at least get your first upgrade with reputation, right?
It is important, but you can also achieve that by going double university. I do in general think they are slightly overvalued by the community.
So what about the Tasmanian Devil on the Tarsier and the Horse? I mean, the Horse is a bit more debatable, but I think the first two are super good in your opening hand.
I think Horse is the best petting zoo by far.
Yeah, for sure.
Tas Devil also very solid. I used to be pretty high on Tarsier, but the top level meta is a lot getting your universities first and then your handshakes. One good thing about Tarsier is if your opponent starts hand size, you can get Asia, play Tarsier, and then get size 2 rep for your second upgrade round 2 if neither of you have a project.
Yeah, what you're saying is you can deny him the second university he wants to get, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes that ruins your opponent's games completely.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to player games now.
Yeah, I think generally we're gonna talk mostly about 2-player games, because that's usually how the game is played online at least. Would you ever go for Tamarin or Koala in the opening hand?
Tapir I think is awful. It's more of a late game animal.
Yeah, it's too expensive really. That's what I think.
I'm not sure how much digging is. I believe it's 1 or 1.5 per dig. Nothing you really want to be doing early.
Sam talked about 1 science requirement. That's easy. You should always do that, because you're naturally gonna get that from the unit, like the Tasmanian Devil. But 2 science is a bit more tricky, so you kind of want to sponsor with a science, because taking the 2 science unit is a little bit awkward in the early game. So what do you think about Tamarin to begin with?
I think it's awful. It's like, I think there's a lot of better double science animals. Like, even when I have double science, I'm not happy playing Tamarin. I'm not sure what it is, but it's mostly like the rep in itself, the shield in itself, doesn't really provide you anything.
But I would say that they are good in the early game, but maybe I'm completely misunderstanding this game, because if you get 1 shield and you have maybe Zoo School or something...
Yeah, you also have to have the Zoo School, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But the thing is, if you only get 1 shield and have no way of getting the second shield, you're paying 8 money very early on for that shield.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like the reputation is super good, at least until you get the first upgrade and the first worker. So I'm surprised that some of your top players are not really that into reputation.
I'm into rep, don't get me wrong. I just think it's overvalued by a lot.
Okay, I see.
Because the way you're framing it, it's a bit like if you see a Tas Devil on display, you're gonna insta-snap it, no matter what. I don't think it's quite that good. It's very good in the right scenarios, but just the fact that you can get the upgrade from reputation track with the double uni, I do think it's slightly overvalued.
Alright, I just put together some of the other animals that are also has some reputation on them. Obviously these are very expensive, hard to play, a lot of requirements. I have seen, I think it was you or some of the top guys like really try to get a Sumatran tiger down like pretty early on, because the 2 shields is obviously great because it gives you the upgrade or the extra worker on the conservation track.
We can start from the top left. I think Zira is like, it's absolutely broken. It's such a good animal if you just look at the stats and effects.
Yep.
But then you need 3 Africa.
Yeah, exactly.
Africa in general is not that strong. Like, it's fantastic when you can play it. The Duke, it's kind of cute. Usually we play it for release. Same with Vulture. Can play it for a rock tag with a cable car. I don't think it's too bad. Condor, you need another bird, so... I mean, yeah, it's not gonna be first animal if you're not on Research Institute. It's not an animal you really want to do as your first animal. Tortoise again, it's a mid to late game animal, so nothing you want to play early. Sumatran tiger is kind of interesting because it is a late game point bomb, but some games you just have nothing better to do than to play it as your first animal. It's a decent first animal to play. Obviously you won't get that much appeal from it for the money you invest, but you do get an upgrade from CP track or a worker. And the rep could be useful to get a worker that way as well. But if you have, for example, aquarium or something, it's a pretty good animal to play early. Spear and tiger is, I think it's just a bad animal in general.
What about late game though? Is it really bad in the late game?
I think it's like probably the worst big size animal in the late game. I'm not sure why.
It's too expensive or?
But yeah, it's too expensive. Like the 3 Asia tags, it's not as hard as 3 Africa, because Asia in general is just a better continent. Doesn't provide enough, to be honest. If you compare it to the Sumatran tiger is just way better, except you needed 2 water.
Yeah.
I'm just disappointed when I have to play a Siberian tiger. And elephant, it's good if Africa is a base project. I wouldn't go nuts over the final scoring card.
Also more like a late game animal.
Either late game or you play it to get Africa 5.
Yeah, for sure. What do you feel about sunbathing in your opening hand?
I think Sunbathing is great if you're going for a partner zoo start. You're not planning to get hand size for a long time. It does depend a bit on your actions. Like, you don't want to take cards and then they just break before you get to Sunbath.
Yeah.
I think the main issue Sunbathing has, it's mostly attached to reptiles. When you're playing a reptile, you're overpaying. I'm not sure exactly how much you're overpaying, just for the potential to put it in a reptile house, but it's a fair bit. Reptile house is usually not something I go for.
But I will say that sometimes I feel like it is nice to have hand size, just because you don't get punished as much. If you're like trying to set up a big sunbathe, even if they break, fine, you still have 5 cards you can sunbathe. I see what you're saying. If you want to keep your hand size low because you don't have hand size, then it makes a lot of sense to sunbathe.
Yeah.
How much do we value these in the opening hand? I think the small lizards in the bottom are like, well, if it adds up to one of the base projects. But otherwise, I think I would much rather have a lemur or a sea lion.
Yeah, I think the sea lion and the lemur is great. Rock monitor is decent, like you do get a bit of discount because it has a rock requirement. I do also like the Chinese water dragon just because the Asia tag is... Like, Asia is the best continent, so...
Yeah. And then we have jumping. We kind of like jumping in the early game, right?
Yeah. Pygmy hippo is probably the most annoying animal to play against in the game.
Yeah.
Because if your opponent gets Africa and builds a 2-size next to water, you don't know if they are gonna pill for you when you play animals, or if they're gonna break before you do animals.
Yeah, and obviously all of these rock symbols are also great. I've seen you like a few times. Every time you play, you have like cable car, you have the ibex, and you have what's the last one called?
Geologist?
Yeah, geologist. You should have these 3 cards, I think. It's a JD classic.
I don't know about that. I'm more sold on aquarium than cable car actually, so I wouldn't call it a JD classic.
Alright.
But yeah, it's great, like the jumping in general, especially if you're first player, because you can cause the break before your opponent either gets income sponsor card out or gets to do an animal actions.
Yeah.
That's just gonna put you far ahead in the early game.
And on top of that, a card like a cougar is just great for releasing, if you have a release for the cougar to begin with. So there's a lot of advantages with these, for sure.
Yeah, and it's a 2 money discount just from the rock icon alone.
Yeah. And then we have full-throated, and I'm interested about this because my opinion was pretty much that it's only Furseal that's good in the early game. The 2 others are fine in the mid to late game, but you're really trying to make this work if you can. like with the brown bear, the grizzly bear, to make them work in the early game? I guess mostly the brown bear, right? What are you doing in the early game with these cards?
I think grizzly bear is just awful because that requirements are kind of tough. You're overpaying a lot. Like if you just look at the stats on the grizzly bear, you're overpaying a lot for the X tokens you get, and it's usually just 1 to 2 X tokens.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I don't like when my animals gives me X tokens, but you're also paying for the bear tag on the grizzly bear. If you're gonna play brown bear, it's usually when you have polar bear exhibit. Then you also get some extra value from that. You can also do it with American bears, or even better, Research Institute. Like, sure, you kind of waste X2, but sometimes you can get a partnership and 2 rep. It's not bad. Like, Persil is the golden standard, but I do think brown bear early is pretty solid as well.
I think I saw one of your games. You played brown bear and Research Institute, and it was a tough time making it work because it's so hard to do. You have to start on the left, place a 5 next to water, and then go down to get the Research Institute icon. And I think your opinion was, my plan worked, but it's kind of a hassle.
Are you sure it wasn't grizzly bear?
I've
been trying to make grizzly bear work on Research Institute, and I think it's never worth it. But I do on Research Institute, I do like brown bear early a lot.
Alright, and then Sam made this video on top of Strategy Advisor's video where he listed out the best animals in the game according to this calculation method that they kind of figured out. Anything to add about these cards? You still think they're worth being like the top 10, 11, 12 in the game?
I would say Pastel might be slightly overrated here in my opinion. Yeah, I think Persil is better. I think it should be higher up in the list.
Yeah, I feel like the Sun Bear could be higher, but I'm curious to hear what you think about this.
I mean, I'm not gonna snark on Sam too much. He just...
No, it's okay.
He just became...
He's never gonna watch this. He's never gonna watch it. You can trash him, it's fine.
No. He became the top 10 ELO of all time yesterday, so congratulations.
Oh, cool.
Congratulations to Sam for that. But I do think hands down Sunbear is just the best animal in the game. Some would even argue it's the best card in the game.
Yeah, that was my feeling too, so I'm surprised it was down here.
I have watched this video, but it was a while ago. But I'm not sure why Sunbear has such a low ranking.
Yeah, I guess it's his feeling mixed with this calculation method. I don't think it's all of his opinion, it's also according to this calculation method, I think.
And the elephant seems very highly rated here.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
I'm not sure if they're in order, but I do believe the Asian elephant is a lot better than the African one.
Yeah.
I can see Tortoise and Macaw being 5 to 9, but I don't agree with the 3 first.
Yeah, I think you said on one of your streams that the elephants give you like 2 shields on average, like the final scoring cards, something like this.
Yeah, it depends on the game length. They are gonna be easier to fulfill the longer the game you have.
Yeah.
I know we had a discussion this like way back when we used to play on TTS Club, and I think we came to the conclusion in free play games you average about 2 shields or like 1.9.
Yeah, so which of these cards would you keep in your opening hand?
95% always keeping Sunbear in my opening hand. Macaw, I would be a bit lower. I'd say it's a coin toss.
Alright.
The elephants, I am never keeping in my opening hand unless Asia or Africa 5 is open. Tortoise, I think it's a bit too early to keep it in your opening hand.
What about rhinos? Would you keep these in your opening hand?
Yeah, rhinos are great. It kind of banks on species and habitat not being out there already.
Is the white rhino slightly better? I think someone said this just because you don't have to upgrade animals, but I think it was like a weird opinion. It was at the tournament game you did.
I'd say they're different. So the Indian one has Asia tag, which is better than African tag.
Yeah.
Because you're more likely to get Asia than Africa.
Mm.
But then you might also, if you're going for habitats, the fact that the white rhino has an African tag might even be a benefit for you.
Oh yes.
Then you don't have to get Africa. But the rock requirement could be hard to fulfill. I mean, I think they're just different. I wouldn't say one is better than the other ones. You should upgrade animals in 99% of your games anyways. So...
Yeah, I never thought about that actually. That you kind of like the African icon because you'll take habitats. That's kind of interesting.
Let's say species and habitat is already up there.
Yeah.
The Indian rhino is better because then you can get Asia with it.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. If you are picking something, you want to get something that gives you 5 shields, and preferably 0 shield for your opponent. So usually we're talking about habitat and species because these are the easiest ones to fulfill. But if you do happen to have 5 Europe, of course you're gonna get that because it would be better to have something that your opponent cannot leech off.
Yeah, not all the time. Like, let's say you have 5 Europe and your opponent has 0. You still might want to get species because your opponent might have the other rhino.
Okay.
Or, like you might even know about your opponent having the other rhino, but if he has like a 4/6 next to rock, you could suspect it, you know.
Alright, that's pretty next level. I didn't think about that.
Okay, I don't think it's that much next level, but there's also some dance. Like sometimes only species is good for both players, and both have the rhino, and it's like you don't really want to play it that early, but you kind of want to play it to get it out before your opponent's rhino.
Just so you can get species. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but species is usually easier to fulfill than habitat as well. If you can't get species or habitat, I think the 2 most common ones are Asian herbivores, because the rhino is an herbivore in itself.
Yeah. And then finally we have the eagles, and I think everyone can agree that this should be 1 and 2. So there's no surprise here.
The sunbird should be 1.
Alright, I got you. There we go. Are you happy now? As a sunbear?
Yeah, thank you.
That's exactly what I wanted to say, that it surprises me that Sunbear is not up here with the eagles because it's basically the same. And I also feel like Sunbear can be used to grab species 5 early. I think it's more flexible to play Sunbear in the early game, so...
Yeah, exactly. And also the thing is, if you have an eagle and another avian bird, eagles are very good. In that case, eagles are better than Sunbear. But if you only have an eagle and no other avian birds, it's still good, but it's just slightly better than average. Like the thing that makes eagles strong is when you have plenty of avian birds. And I'm not sure how many there is in game, but I don't think there's more than 12. Okay, yeah. 11.
I would never keep an elephant like you, and I would maybe keep a rhino, but I would definitely consider keeping eagles in my opening hand, even though I know that I'm likely not gonna play them until the mid to late game. Probably last turn, but sometimes you play them a bit sooner if you want to release them. If there's a race to Europe 5, maybe you do the Golden Eagle and just steal the Europe 5 or something. But usually they're played in the very last round, right?
Yeah, usually. If you have more than 1, let's say you have an eagle and a sunbear or double eagle, you could do it early.
Yeah.
You could also do like an eagle to surprise break your opponent. Like I think when you want to play eagles early is when you're either really far ahead or far behind, and you don't have to make a big final turn to ensure the victory. If it's equal and you only have 1 determination animal, I would never do it early. But if you're far behind or far ahead, I'd say just get it out there.
So do you always keep eagles in your opening hand? Or is it like 50-50?
97% of times.
Oh really? Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned the brown bear earlier, and I also really fancy this combo. Like, have one of the determination animals together with a brown bear, so you could just end the game and immediately get X2 on association twice, preferably 2 projects or something. It's very cool when that happens.
Yeah, it's very classic combo, especially with Sunbear, because the Sunbear does provide a bear tag.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Could be awkward with the eels, just because you need a 5 size and an aviary.
Yeah, that's true. Sam, he put up this list of what the best animals are. Is there anything that jumps out to you here that is definitely wrong, other than what we talked about?
Probably value King Cobra 19 a bit higher. Also, I don't see the European hypnosis, but...
Oh yeah, I think that's near the bottom, actually. We're gonna talk about that in a second.
Oh yeah. But I think hypnosis... I mean, sometimes it's better than eagles, it's just way less reliable.
What about the giant panda? Why is this only like 23? Is it because it's just hard to fulfill with the bear tag and the partner?
Yeah, the requirements are very brutal. You need a bear tag, and the Urbi tag could be tricky as well. The partner too, like you're mostly getting Asia anyways, so... but also the cost is kind of awkward. But I do think Panda is fairly strong, especially on a map like Research Institute, when you can cheat on the requirements a bit. Like if you just look at the tags, it's -7 for the bear, right? -4 for the partnership, -3 for the Urbi, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was 8 for the bear, but yeah, I get your point.
Yeah, exactly. And then also it costs 27 money, so you know it's a big point dump in the end.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the worst animals, according to this calculation method. He did do it like, so it's true to this calculation method, so it's not necessarily his opinion. So according to this, the worst animals in the game are the bison and the moose.
So I'm not sure how much he's calculating for iconic, but I assume he's calculating it that just for itself, or like maybe itself plus the requirement. But I don't believe it's the max on Iconic at least. I think the Bison is pretty great when you can get it out. It's one of the best releases in the game as well.
Yeah, I was about to say this too, that there are some pretty good releases here at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. The Bison sponsor magnet is horrible. Not sure how expensive it is, but it's very pricey.
What about these? Do they really deserve to be down here?
Lion is great. If you can fulfill the requirements, it's one of the best animals in the game. I love the Eagle Owl. Getting to take a card's action on your animal's action is a lot better than it sounds. Adder, super good as well, but very high variance. Yeah, I think it's more of a mid-game animal.
And we should also mention that we are of course thinking that you're probably playing normal. It's not friendly mode, because if this is friendly mode, this has determination, which is absolutely completely broken. So we're not playing friendly mode, we're playing with the hypnosis.
We're not here to make friends.
Exactly. What do you think about this though? The Komodo Dragon, does it deserve to be down here at 114?
I assume Sam put Iconic as 0 or something in this, so I don't think you can say anything about the iconic animals, but I do think Komodo Dragon is a very good animal.
Where to rate this card?
Probably top 30.
Yeah, I quite like this animal. It's also a great release.
Yep, it's just the best content.
I would like to point out that this picture makes no sense, because Komodo Dragon is obviously Asia, the elephants are probably Africa, and Sam is Australia, so don't think about it. What about this guy? You mentioned this animal in your stream, right? The great Hornbill.
I love the Hornbill. It's 17 money for 6 appeal, right?
Yeah.
We're already getting a hidden discount on 1 money, which is kind of nice for no reason at all. You get the best tags, except bear tag, in the game, Asian birds.
Yep.
Also, the boost you get for free, which is... It could be like a clever. Like, usually you don't want to have build high after taking animals, so it's kind of nice just putting it at the bottom.
Oh, and then there is the Koala. We also talked a little bit about this already. I kind of like the Koala, but how strong do you think this card is?
It's quite expensive, and you do need a card's pouch. As I said earlier, I do think pouching is a bit overpriced. It combos very, very nicely with Giant Panda we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It provides 2 of the tags you need.
Yeah, that's true. In the late game, it's just 12 tickets. Solid.
Yeah.
And then we got the Giraffe, and I gotta be honest, I kinda hate the Giraffe. It's kind of expensive, the boost sponsors is sometimes good, but often it's not. Its tax is not really what I want. The Giraffe is taller than me. No, I really don't like the Giraffe. What do you think about this card though?
It's a card. It's
Yeah.
mostly there to fill out the deck, I feel. If you go back to the formula, it's also +1. So you're actually overpaying, like a hidden cost. It's 22 money, but what it provides is just 21 money, right?
Any other animals you would like to talk about before we move on?
I think the American bear is kind of good, like for species, etc. Boost of Soch is sometimes the best ability in the game. So raccoon for sure is a very strong animal. It gives you 2 on species diversity. It's good.
Once again, you can check out Sam, our strategy advisor, if you wanna hear some more of what everything is worth.